Ah, prayer. That little whisper in the dark, that desperate murmur when the world's noise gets too loud. People fold their hands, bow their heads, close their eyes, thinking that somehow, just by saying the right words, the heavens will open and pour out answers like vending machines dispensing miracles. Cute, really cute. But let me ask you something. What are you praying with? A mouthful of holy words and a heart still soaked in poison? You think the universe doesn't notice the contradiction? Ah, the heart, that filthy little liar hiding behind ribs and red meat. People walk around thinking they've got it all figured out, looking clean on the outside, polished like a showroom car, but inside? Oh, inside it's a carnival of chaos. Jealousy juggling next to hate, bitterness spinning on the merry-go-round, and pride screaming from the roller coaster seat. Yet somehow, they think they can just open their mouth and pray. Just like that. No cleanup, no inspection, no detox, just words. Pretty, hollow words, dripping from a heart clogged with dirt. Funny, isn't it, how people believe their prayers are reaching heaven when even their own soul won't listen to them anymore? They fold their hands like it's some sacred choreography. They whisper fancy verses, borrowed lines, holy scripts, while the real message, the one bleeding inside, is ignored. They don't pray from the heart. They pray around it. They avoid it, because to pray from it, oh no, that would mean facing what's really in there. And most people, they'd rather keep the curtain closed, keep the skeletons dancing in the dark. You see, before you open your mouth to speak to something higher, you better make sure the chamber you're speaking from isn't echoing with curses, grudges, venom. You want blessings, but you still hate your neighbor. You want peace, but you're feeding chaos. You ask for light while harboring darkness like a secret pet. You feed under the table. And you expect the heavens to answer that? You think just because you say the right words, the heart doesn't melt, that the stench inside doesn't rise with your voice? The heart is the engine of every prayer. And if that engine is leaking oil, coughing smoke, making noises you pretend not to hear, don't expect the ride to go anywhere. It's broken. You're broken, but no one wants to admit that. No one wants to clean house. They want to decorate the broken walls instead. Toss flowers over their guilt, spray perfume on their resentment, make it look holy while it rots from within. Clean your heart, rip the floorboards open, let the demons crawl out, face them one by one. Look your envy in the eye, shake hands with your hate. Sit across the table from the versions of yourself you've buried deep under smiles and sermons. That's the only way. The heart becomes a sanctuary, not a slaughterhouse, not a museum of pain. But people are lazy, spiritually lazy. They want shortcuts. They want instant blessings like fast food. God give me peace, but don't ask me to forgive my father. God bless me, but don't you dare touch my ego. God speak to me, but don't point out my flaws. It's all a game, a ritual, a mask with a holy label slapped on it, and underneath, just another heart-pumping poison thinking it's praying. You think the universe is deaf to the difference between a clean heart and a contaminated one? You think the heavens don't weigh the weight of your words against the dirt behind them? They do. Oh, they do. That's why some prayers never rise. They crash right at your lips, because the words might be wrapped in gold, but the voice that delivers them is dragging chains of guilt, hypocrisy, unresolved sins. So before you open that mouth, clean the place the prayer will come from. Scrub it raw, pull out the roots of resentment, yank out the weeds of self-righteousness. Let it hurt, let it sting, let it tear you apart if it has to. Because only when the heart is clean can the prayer be real. Only when the soul has been stripped can the voice carry weight. You can't pray from a place you've abandoned. You can't ask for light from a room you've let mold in darkness. You can't speak to divinity while your heart still worships shadows. Drop your pride before you raise your hands. That's a tough one, isn't it? People love the sound of their own prayers, the way their voice trembles, how their hands shake, how their eyes water. Oh, it's all so dramatic. But peel back that performance and what do you see? Pride. Thick, ugly pride, standing in front of their soul like a bodyguard, deciding which parts of them are allowed to be seen, even by God. They want to appear broken, not be broken. They want to look humble without actually dropping anything that makes them feel important. It's hilarious watching people act like beggars in prayer while still wearing crowns in their hearts, as if the heavens are fooled by their little spiritual theater, as if humility can be faked. Pride, my friend, isn't just a loud scream. It's also a quiet whisper. It's the voice that says, I'm not like them. It's the thought that sneaks in when you compare your suffering to others and decide you deserve more. It's the feeling of entitlement that creeps into your prayer like a parasite, feeding on every word you offer, turning it into a performance instead of surrender. You raise your hands, but what are you raising them for? Is it surrender or is it a display? Because surrender means dropping the sword, dropping the armor, dropping the story you tell yourself to feel better than others. But people raise their hands like soldiers with hidden weapons, pretending they've laid everything down when they've just tucked their pride behind their backs. You think divine ears can't hear the pride in your silence, in your sighs, in the way you beg but still expect the world to bend for you? Pride isn't just thinking you're better. Sometimes it's refusing to be seen weak. That's the biggest joke of all. You think you can hide your weakness from the one who stitched it into your very fabric? You pretend you're fine, you pretend you're strong, you pretend your faith is unshakable, but underneath, you're trembling, you're tired, you're terrified, yet you still won't admit it. You'd rather fake strength than confess vulnerability. You think prayer is about impressing, but it was always about undressing. Layer by layer, pride first, always pride first. Drop it. That need to look righteous, that addiction to control, that obsession with having the final word, even in front of your maker. Let it go. Because until you do, your raised hands are just decoration. Pretty shapes in the air with no depth, no weight. You want a prayer that touches heaven? Then drop what keeps you stuck to the earth. The ego, the self-image, the reputation you've built like a fortress around your soul. None of it matters in prayer. None of it survives in the presence of truth. But oh, people will fight tooth and nail to keep it. They'll dress their pride in holy words. They'll call it conviction. They'll wrap it in scripture. They'll use it to judge, to divide, to feel superior, even while kneeling. The irony? The very thing that blocks the power of prayer is the thing they're most proud of. That self-picture, that mask, that sense of being spiritually advanced. They don't kneel for connection. they kneel for applause, even if the applause only exists in their mind. You want to raise your hands? Then make sure you're not lifting them with the same pride that made angels fall. Make sure you're not worshiping your own idea of yourself more than the one you claim to be praying to. Pride will poison every word, twist every request, distort every moment of vulnerability until it becomes a transaction instead of transformation. You want answers? Drop the attitude that thinks you already deserve them. Because the real prayer starts after the pride dies. Not before, not during, after. When there's nothing left to prove. When you no longer care how you look. When your voice cracks and your face breaks and your soul is on its knees. Then you're not just raising hands. You're raising ashes. And only then does something real begin to stir. Ah, now this one's a real gem, isn't it? Clean your heart before you open your mouth. But who's got time for that, right? Everyone's in a hurry. A rush to pray, a rush to speak, a rush to look holy. They've got their favorite verses on their tongues, but they forgot to scrub the filth underneath. It's like spraying perfume over rotting flesh and pretending the stench isn't there. You ever seen a cracked glass filled with clean water? It might look fine until it starts leaking filth from the cracks. That's the human heart. Cracked, contaminated, but oh so eager to spill words that sound. People think prayer is about what they say. Oh, how they love their words. Elegant phrases, carefully crafted requests, dramatized emotions like actors on a stage. But what's the use of that silver-coated speech if it's dripping from a heart blackened by bitterness, envy, guilt, unforgiveness? They think God's impressed by vocabulary. They think divine ears are drawn to poetic speeches while their souls remain cluttered with chaos. It's funny how they pray for peace with a heart full of war. You ever wonder why some prayers feel like they bounce off the ceiling? Well, maybe it's not the ceiling, it's the heart. Maybe the heart is the echo chamber, muffling everything you're trying to send up. Because you can't speak light from a place that's still harboring shadows. You can't pour healing from a well that's poisoned. But oh, they try. They pray while hating, they worship while holding grudges. They bow while secretly judging the next person kneeling beside them. It's a performance, a perfectly rehearsed illusion of spirituality with a backstage full of unresolved rot. They'll say, "But I didn't sin today." Oh, isn't that adorable? They treat holiness like a checklist. Didn't lie, didn't cheat, didn't steal, so that must mean the heart's clean, right? But what about the thoughts you buried, the pride you nourished, the silent resentment that's been fermenting behind your smile? What about the wounds you refuse to admit, the people you refuse to forgive? What about the way you pretend to be holy just to feel superior? You think those don't stain the heart? You want to pray? Good, then clean first. Scrub deep, not just the surface polish, go where it hurts. Peel back the layers of self-deception, rip open the wounds you've tried to hide, expose the mold growing beneath your spiritual wallpaper. It's messy, it's ugly, and it's necessary. Because prayer was never meant to be a mask, it was meant to be a mirror. But people hate mirrors. They'd rather pray in the dark than confront the reflection of who they've become. And that's the tragedy. They speak light, but refuse to face their own shadows. You can't fake cleanliness in prayer, not really. You can fake tears, fake humility, fake passion. But the heart, oh, the heart always tells the truth. You ever notice how some prayers sound desperate yet feel hollow? That's the sound of a filthy heart trying to sound holy. A soul whispering praise while choking on its own secrets. You can't pray right with a heart that's still dragging chains behind it. You can't scream hallelujah while whispering curses in your thoughts. You can't reach upward while still clenching old grudges in your fists. People spend more time cleaning their shoes before entering a building than they do cleaning their hearts before entering prayer. They'll sanitize their hands, fix their collars, straighten their posture, but inside, still carrying offenses like trophies, still holding guilt behind spiritual rituals, still holding on to the past like it's some kind of identity badge. They forget God doesn't care about how you look in prayer. He listens to where you speak from. And if what you're speaking from is a heart still dripping with dirt, then what do you expect him to do with your words? You want to be heard? Then be clean, not perfect, not flawless, just honest, just real, just willing to walk into prayer with a heart stripped of ego, envy, and entitlement. You don't need to be polished, you need to be purified. And that purification starts before the first word leaves your lips, before the first tear touches your cheek, before the first sigh escapes your soul. It starts with the courage to look within and say, before I speak, I need to cleanse this mess. You keep seeking miracles like they're candy from a street magician, don't you? Always asking, always begging, always knocking. But did you ever wonder if maybe, just maybe, you are the miracle? But that's boring, right? Too simple, too subtle. People don't want subtle. They want fireworks in the sky, not sparks in the soul. They want a voice from heaven screaming their name, not the silent pull in their chest that's been whispering truth for years. Oh, the irony. The signs are everywhere. Blinking, screaming, crawling around them like shadows at noon. And they still act blind. Because it's easier to believe nothing's happening than to accept that everything is. You keep saying, I'm waiting on God, but what if God's been waiting on you? What if every delay was a disguise? What if every unanswered prayer was a door you were never meant to walk through? People hate silence, they hate stillness. They call it spiritual dryness, when it might just be preparation. But no, they want the big gestures, the burning bush, the parted sea. They don't want the quiet transformation happening in their own bones, the little shift in their thinking, the moments of discomfort that stretch their spirit just enough to prepare them for something they can't even name yet. Pain. Now there's a divine tool, isn't it? Everybody wants the blessing, but no one wants the blade. You think miracles happen in soft places? No. They're born in pressure, forged in fire, sculpted in sorrow. Your sleepless nights, your unanswered questions, your aching loneliness, that's not punishment. That's the hammer and chisel. That's the furnace and the flame. You say, why me? And God says, exactly. Because only someone broken in just the right way can carry what's coming next. You think diamonds come from pillows? No. They come from pressure and pain and darkness, so thick it swallows light whole before it ever learns to shine. And still you doubt, still you question, still you look at your reflection and only see failure. But maybe God doesn't see what you see. Maybe he sees the blueprint in your bruises. Maybe he sees a warrior in your weariness. Maybe he sees foundation in your fractures. But you're too busy comparing yourself to others who are just better at pretending. You think they've got it all figured out. You think they're ahead. But what if the one who looks slow is the one being refined? What if the delay is divine timing disguised as disaster. You want signs? Look at your resistance. Look at the doors that closed right in your face and thank them. Look at the people who left and realize their absence was the space you needed to grow. Look at your hunger, that gnawing dissatisfaction that keeps you up at night. That's not emptiness. That's divine design. A thirst planted by purpose. A craving for something your old self could never understand. But you keep ignoring it. You keep numbing it. Drowning it in distractions and shallow pleasures. You keep saying you're waiting for confirmation, but you've been getting confirmation through every chaos, every heartbreak, every uncomfortable moment that refused to let you settle. Do you think change feels like peace? No, it feels like confusion, like being stripped of your comfort zone. Like watching pieces of yourself fall apart while not knowing what's being built in their place. But that's the beauty of it. That's the madness of divine transformation. It never looks like a miracle when you're in it. It looks like mess, it looks like ruin, it looks like failure. But that's how it always starts. Not with applause, not with clarity, but with chaos. Controlled chaos. Orchestrated disruption, the kind that doesn't just change your circumstances, it rewires your soul. You want God to move, but you don't want to move. You want the blessing, but you don't want to bleed. You want purpose without pressure, growth without breaking, light without the dark, but it doesn't work like that. It never did. Every storm you survived was a setup. Every delay was direction. Every rejection was redirection, but you were too focused on what hurt to see what was being healed underneath it. You were too focused on what was taken to realize what you were being prepared to receive. Because miracles don't always arrive wrapped in glory. Sometimes they come disguised as grief. Sometimes they come with no announcement. Just a nudge, a whisper, a shift, and only those who've been through the fire learn how to hear it. Ah, silence, that eerie stillness before the storm, that uncomfortable pause between questions and answers, that quiet space most people run from like it's haunted. But what if silence isn't absence? What if it's presence, louder than any shout, deeper than any verse, more terrifying than any scream? People don't know what to do with silence. They fidget, they scroll, they talk just to fill the air with noise, scared of what they might hear if they just sat still for a moment. Isn't that fascinating? That silence has become scarier than chaos. But let me ask you, what if silence is where he speaks the loudest? Not in the noise, not in the crowd, not in the lightning bolts you keep praying for, but in the quiet, in the space between thoughts, in the dead air where your masks fall off and your soul starts to echo. Most people miss it, you know. They think silence means something's wrong, that maybe God left the building, took a vacation, forgot their name, so they panic. They scream louder, pray harder, perform more rituals, trying to manipulate heaven into speaking again. But maybe, just maybe, the silence is the answer. Because what does silence do? It strips you of ego, of pretense, of performance. When everything is quiet, your truth comes out, doesn't it? You start hearing your real voice, the one that's been buried under expectations and noise and fake smiles. You start realizing what you've been avoiding all along. You start meeting yourself in that mirror without filters. and it's uncomfortable, unsettling, raw. Because silence exposes what noise conceals. And oh, people hate being exposed. They'd rather be entertained. They want sermons that tickle the ears. They want spiritual highs like cheap drugs, quick, intense, and gone by morning. But silence, it's not a high. It's a descent, a spiral inward, a descent into the layers of yourself you've never dared to peel. You want miracles, but you won't even sit still. You want healing, but you won't face your wounds in the mirror. Reality, you simply fade. And when you finally, but you won't face your wounds in them. You want peace, but you won't silence your own noise long enough to hear it breathing right next to you. And in that silence, you hear the sound of pruning, of shedding, of letting go. It's not always comforting, is it? Sometimes it sounds like loneliness, like nothingness. But that's how transformation begins, not in the trumpet blast, but in the still, small voice, the whisper in the hallway, the quiet in the battlefield before the war of identity begins. Because before the breakthrough, there's always a break. Before revelation, there's a void. And that void isn't punishment, it's preparation. People want clarity, but they can't handle the silence it comes wrapped in. They want loud answers to quiet questions, but some answers aren't meant to be shouted. Some answers are meant to be absorbed, digested, felt in your bones. That's why the silence is so heavy. It carries everything you've been trying to outrun, everything you buried under distractions, everything God wants you to face. You think he's being distant, but what if he's closer than ever, just not performing the way you expected? Because silence isn't absence. Silence is focus. It's sacred space. It's the sacred pause before the divine shift. And if you're too impatient to sit in it, you'll miss the very thing you've been praying for. You'll rush out of the womb before you're fully formed. You'll run toward noise just to feel alive again, forgetting that life isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides behind the veil of silence to see if you're willing to listen without your ear, to see if your soul can hear what your senses cannot. Most people will never understand this. They'll call silence a curse, a punishment, a test. But some of us know better. Some of us have learned to sit in it, to breathe in it, to bleed in it. Because we've discovered that silence is where the real dialogue happens, where the divine doesn't speak in words, but in weight, in presence, in pressure, in pull. And once you've tasted that kind of communion, you don't need the noise anymore. You stop begging for signs and start recognizing shadows. You stop chasing echoes and start reading the stillness. Because silence is not the end of the conversation. It's the beginning of a new kind, a deeper kind, one that doesn't depend on volume but on vibration, on alignment, on awareness. And once you hear it, truly hear it, you never forget the sound of being spoken to without words. Ah, so you think you've done everything right, huh? You said the words. You bowed your head. You folded your hands just the way they taught you. You even lit the candles, played the worship songs, posted the quotes on your stories, and nothing. Silence. Static. Emptiness. And now you're frustrated, irritated, agitated. You start to wonder, what's the point? You did everything by the book, but it feels like the book isn't even open anymore. Funny how quickly people get disillusioned when the script doesn't go their way, when the magic trick doesn't work, when the divine doesn't perform on command. That's when the masks start to peel off, and what's underneath isn't as holy as it pretended to be. You see, most people pray with a mouth full of demands and a heart full of conditions. They come to the altar with a shopping list, expecting heaven to respond like a vending machine. But prayer, real prayer, it's not a transaction. It's a transformation. It's not about getting what you want. It's about becoming what you were too scared to become. And that's why it hurts. That's why it takes time. That's why the answers don't come wrapped in pretty bows. Because prayer isn't a wish, it's a war. And you're not just asking for change, you're asking to be change. But here's the part they don't put in the pamphlets. The most dangerous part of prayer isn't what you say, it's what it exposes. Oh yes, you think you're talking to God, but really He's digging into you, scraping the layers off, pulling out the rot you thought you buried. You ask for peace, He shows you your chaos. You ask for strength, He exposes your weakness. You ask for light, He walks you through the shadows first. That's the cost. That's the price. That's the twist in the plot. People think prayer is a safe space, a cozy little conversation with the heavens, but it's not. It's a furnace, a mirror, a scalpel. And if you're not prepared for what it reveals, you'll mistake the process for punishment. You'll curse the silence. You'll resent the waiting. But what you don't realize is that while you're waiting for a voice to thunder from the sky, He's already working in the stillness beneath your skin, while you're pacing back and forth for an answer. He's peeling back your pride, one layer at a time. So here's a little secret. Before you pray, you better ask yourself, are you really ready? Ready to hear the truth you've been dodging? Ready to confront the fear you've been dressing up as faith? 'Cause prayer will strip you bare. It won't let you hide behind verses and vocabulary. It won't let you fake your way through intimacy. It will dig, and it will find every skeleton in your holy closet. That's the cost of real connection. That's the price of touching fire. People say, come as you are, but they forget to mention that if you come real, you won't leave the same. If you pray real, something will die in that conversation. Your ego, your illusions, your control. That's what makes it holy. It burns, it purifies, it shatters. So don't start praying unless you're ready for that kind of demolition. Don't begin if you're still clinging to the idea that you can manipulate the outcome, because this isn't theater. This is surgery, and God doesn't operate on your timeline. Before you pray, maybe check your posture, not just the physical one, no, the internal one. The one that hides behind the performance. Are you kneeling or are you negotiating? Are you surrendering or are you scripting? Are you really opening yourself up or are you just performing another ritual to make yourself feel better about your own noise? Because He doesn't respond to noise, He responds to surrender. And surrender, real surrender, isn't loud, it's ugly, it's quiet, it's raw, It's the kind of silence that breaks you before it heals you. And maybe that's why so many prayers go unanswered, because they were never really prayers to begin with, just rehearsed lines with no pulse, just hollow words wrapped in fake reverence. You want heaven to listen, but your soul isn't even speaking. You want breakthrough, but you're still holding on to the very chains you're begging to be freed from. That's the paradox. That's the punchline. You think you're praying, but you're still pretending. And heaven doesn't deal in pretense. Heaven deals in blood, in tears, in surrender that can't be staged. So don't begin unless you're ready to bleed a little. Don't begin unless you're ready to be undone. Because real prayer doesn't leave you glowing. It leaves you wrecked, reborn, and rebuilt from the ruins you were hiding behind your polished little prayers.